Britain has a quite amazing digital past, and probably more than any other country in the world, we have digital things in our makeup and in our culture. But I think what's striking is how often we haven't made the most of that. We haven't really used digital technologies to transform our schools, our hospitals, our democracy. It has changed lots about how we do business, how we shop, and how we have fun. But as I see it, we're still probably only halfway through a revolution which may take place over 60 or 70 years, just as electricity took at least 50 or 60 or 70 years to transform the ways we live with fridges and cookers and supermarkets and suburbs. And I think what's fascinating now is that some people think we've already been through the revolution, but probably the pace of change in the next 10 or 20 years will be even faster than it has been in the recent past. The internet is going to transform every public service, but in completely different ways. So if you think of something like taxation, all over the world, people are now learning to pay their taxes by the internet, and in some countries like Australia, since they send you their assessment of your tax and you just click a box to say that's okay, which saves you a huge amount of time. In a field like education, quite a different story. Huge potential from technology to transform how we learn. And we've recently, Anesta, set out some of the lessons from uses of technology in the classroom, but they're quite complicated ones. There's some about transforming how you learn geography and history. Some are about using technology to help you learn when you're at home rather than in the school. Some are technologies for continual assessment and feedback to personalize education for kids. And one of the lessons actually is that a lot of the uses of digital technologies in schools weren't very well conceived, weren't well planned, weren't sufficiently integrated with the reality of how we learn and how teachers teach. There's other services where the internet will have very different effects. We've been supporting projects here, for example, transforming libraries, where citizens put their own book collections on the library's database, so that you can borrow books from your neighbour rather than necessarily having to go to the library. And there's a whole host of these we call collaborative consumption technologies which transform how we think about public services, mobilising the community's assets, whether they're books or cars or household equipment like drills, which are on average used for only 11 minutes a day. The biggest impact of all, I suspect, will come in health and care, which is anyway the biggest public service all over the world. In the US, it's forecast to be half of GDP by the latter part of this century. And there too, I think we'll see quite a complicated picture. Already people use the internet to find out about their conditions, to get diagnoses. Already on the internet you can find what's the really proven medical interventions which work. But we're looking at going really a stage or two further to ways in which through a smartphone or a laptop you can access authenticated, reliable health information, and at the moment the internet often gives you bad information and misleading advice, but also can link you up with other patients, their experiences, how they've learnt perhaps to deal with pain, how to handle their own condition, and also telling you where there's promising ideas, but which aren't yet proven, which haven't been through the full rigours of medical scientific trials. And we're calling this the Health Knowledge Commons, and my guess is that in 10 or 20 years' time, the organisation of knowledge about health will be a breakthrough as important as the creation of a public health service, the NHS, was 70 years ago. And again, this is a field where the UK has the potential to be in the lead. We have one of the world's few integrated health services, but we also have organisations like the BBC, the Open University. We have the best organisers of health evidence in things like NICE and NHS evidence. And the task in the next stage is to pull these together to be really useful for the citizen, the patient, so they can get access to the most reliable, most useful knowledge in real time, whether you have a new symptom or you're someone with diabetes or a cancer or a heart disease who needs advice on how to treat themselves.